How's everybody doing out there? Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the video. You guys know the deal. I should have to tell you to smash like and hit subscribe, but some of you guys haven't done it yet, so whatever. We're doing what we do. Episode 3. So we've spent an inordinate amount of time on the basics. Things are going to get a little bit faster here, so hopefully you guys can keep up. Like I said, we're going through 26 and 27 chapters of the Married Man Sex Life Primer, and it's going to be well worth it. There we are. How's everybody doing? I see you guys in the chat enjoying yourselves. Good. You've heard the spiel. So we're getting into chapter 3 right now, and that's alpha male traits, beta male traits, and the difference between them. So I'll start with the quote, because 3.1, alpha equals attraction equals dopamine, is pretty much puts the answer to rest. What the hell is an alpha male? It's not the looks max guy. It's not the guy with the Lamborghini. It's not the guy who's going to make women great again. It's not the sun hat goddess or any chore play or any nonsense. Very simply put, alpha is the dopamine response that you give to women. Period. And that's it. Now, all those things may or may not have an effect, and we're going to get into those a little bit later, but just keep that in the back of your head. Alpha gives them dopamine. Beta gives them serotonin and oxytocin. That's it. Anything more than that, strict fantasy. To quote here, the alpha traits are the things about a man that typically create attraction in women. When guys say genuine desire, by the way, this is kind of what they're getting at. I don't think they know it, but it's it. Female attraction is the involuntary response to alpha male traits that is built into the body agenda of women. Alpha traits spark a dopamine hormonal response in women, and it's the dopamine that makes them experience the feelings of impulse and attraction. Attraction is not controllable. I'm going to say that again because it's vitally important. I'll give you an example why in a second. Attraction is not controllable. A lot of guys hear that and they say, yeah, and they agree, and it makes perfect sense. But then you put them in a situation where they have to apply it and they completely fudge the numbers. So for example, a lot of guys say attraction is not controllable, and they understand that attraction is not negotiable. It's not, desire cannot be negotiated, I think is how Rollo puts it. But you put in a situation where, well, why wouldn't you do this? You would make a suggestion, like if she's being rather annoying towards you and you guys haven't smashed in 2 months, why don't you just go find something better to do with your time? Well, won't she think I'm butthurt? To which I answer, she's already going to think you're butthurt. Doesn't matter. And I would say this is probably the biggest problem guys have when they find out they don't have the proper relationship skills to thrive in one and to put enough alpha behaviors out there to get the sex lives they desire. When guys are missing that, usually the first thing they'll say is, well, that'll get her mad. And she'll get mad, or she will do this, she will do that. They talk about it, again, as if it's a controllable thing. Well, as long as I don't make her mad, then she won't decide to this. Making her mad is irrelevant. Like I said, it's strong feelings. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's apathy. Again, very pithy, very wonderful little statements that make perfect sense. Map it to the scenario. Know this. Know this. Anything she says has zero implications on whether or not you're going to have a happy conjugal visit as a married couple, as a relationship couple, even those first 8 hours. Anything she says is strictly frontal lobe stuff. And we are not talking frontal lobe. We're talking hormones and we're talking the limbic brain. So again, cannot be desired. And I really think it behooves a guy to find out what exactly that term means. Map it. When you're in your situation and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this, it's going to make her so mad. Well, she's kind of stressed out from work and she's saying this. As soon as you say, oh, she's saying, wipe that from your mind. Because right now, you're attracting that beta buck side of the equation, which, while we all have to do it to some extent, there's no relationship without it. You opt into it insofar as she's valuable to you from the alpha side of the equation. Because as a guy, for the most part, that's the only side that matters to you. Next thing is physical body, semen, and genes. Now, I like this chapter because through the test of time, we managed to prove Athol Kay 100% wrong, by the way. So the first aspect of physical traits, of alpha traits, is the physical body of the guy. Women are drawn to well-muscled and lean male figures. It's quite possible to bulk up too far and find that women have become repulsed by excessive muscle. The closer to looking like Michelangelo's David he is, the better his attraction building is. And the point is that women look for a good source of semen and therefore genes for potential pregnancy, but we can't detect that previously. So what we have to do is go after secondary traits. Now, this is the part that I find kind of funny here. I've generally covered the importance of physical health, and we'll close with this. It's almost impossible to underestimate the importance of good physical health and fitness in attracting women. And I would say, dear sir, beta males, incels have done the impossible. They have made looks max into a wonderful crutch that overestimated the importance of good physical health and fitness in attracting women. So it takes a proud man, or it takes a man without pride to admit when he was wrong. And in this case, we were wrong. It is definitely not impossible to underestimate it. So with everything in here, take the knowledge. Don't go overboard. Don't turn your tism up to 12. Have a drink, by the way. It's apparently the good drinking game. Just understand. Now, the other key part from it is overly muscular. I do like how he references Michelangelo's David, because that's based on the Renaissance was always about finding perfection. And the idea of Michelangelo's David was that it was the perfect proportions of guys. If you guys haven't seen the Greek standard, it's where the width of your neck, the width of your upper arm, and or circumference of your upper arm, your neck, and your calf should be the same. And that's the idea for, like balanced musculature. So that's fine, but these aren't make or break issues. But the closer you are to the ideal, the easier that alpha trait is handled. Ooh, why more please in the chat? Yeah, mid of the week stream. Most likely. Although it's still early in the week now, but we're going to do it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, because we got 26 chapters to get through and a whole bunch of other books. The next part, by the way, pre-selection and peacocking. As you can see here, this is where he talks about mystery being like his good influencer in this. So pre-selection is another strong tie to how an attractive man looks. A man with no women paying him attention appears less attractive than a man with multiple women showing him attention. It could be very well the same man, but the effect of the difference in women paying him attention is the difference in his perceived attractiveness. It's something to keep in mind. Again, it's very funny how guys will pay lip service to men and women aren't equivalent, men and women aren't equal, men and women aren't the same. Rollo talks about it all the time, that blank slate equalism. And a lot of guys, they'll be like, yeah, that's right. Girls can't play baseball. Girls can't play football. If we got into a fight, I'd beat her ass. Which is true. But then at the same time, they will 100% believe it here. Girls and boys, but guys a lot so. They think that they don't understand how pre-selection works. And they think girls will like a guy if he doesn't look like he's got other options. They're always scared. Well, I'm dating a girl. What would it look like if she sees another girl talking to me? Or if another girl rings me up on my phone? Or another girl likes my Instagram post? Won't she get jealous? And the answer is yes. Yes, she will. But women and men aren't the same. Men treat jealousy as a paternity thing. The guys that tended to get more jealous and very mate-guardy back in the caveman days tended to keep Cave Chad away from Cave Becky, and they had more cave kids. So those guys survived and thrived. Meanwhile, Cave Chad knocked up all the rest of the girls. And Cave Cuck dwindled off and died with the woolly mammoth. But women don't have that same issue. So they don't have selective pressures on them if they don't have paternity, because they pretty much can tell if it's hers. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's mine. After all, that's yeah, that's me on them. Anyways, so when they have jealousy, it's that pre-selection thing, because, it's cognitively a lot of effort, takes a lot of energy. Your brain uses about a quarter of your daily calories, unless you're eating like a fat fox. But so it takes a lot of cognitive load to be able to assess whether a man is a healthy man through secondary traits, through primary traits. And there's always a chance you can get it wrong and that they can be faked. So what they found is a pretty good secondary trait signal is that if other women have put all the effort into assessing a man as an attractive option, then they just glean onto that. Well, she thinks it's good, so I think it's good. And then generally, groups of women have globbed onto that, and those ones tend to go forth and have more Cade Chad over the years. But that's the point. Jealousy is not the same between men and women. So when a lot of guys think, while women will approach jealousy the same way as a man does, it's not true. It's also not true that they have to see one as a threat. Like, they see every girl as a threat because they know guys will smash anything. Cave Chad has no standards. Every girl is a slump buster to Cave Chad. So when you see these, like, I only do 9s and 10s things, girls don't care about that. There could be a 4 right now giving you a ton of attention, asking if you want to come back to her car and help her out with a fix her engine. She will get jealous over that, and she'll mate guard it, but she'll do it sexually because, you know, desires increase, because at the same time, her limbic brain sees, this girl sees him as a top option, so I'm going to do that too. Again, totally subconscious, and it's just different. He talks about peacocking here, and then the peacocking refers to wearing clothing that acts as a display of higher value. It could be wearing clothes that are expensive and tailored to give a greater impression of wealth, or by wearing clothes that make a statement about a high-profile occupation, like a business suit or a lab coat, though obviously wearing a lab coat to a bar is horribly out of place. How you dress signals a few things. And Tanner Guzzi's course on dressing with charisma, huge, great example about this one. So, people don't know anything about you until you open your mouth, but they can see you from afar. Just by looking at a man in his clothes, you can tell many things about him. If he's wearing dirty clothes, then he's probably working physical labor, and that, at least for a long time, wasn't seen as a particularly attractive option, especially when most people were farmers. So if you saw somebody who was wearing white, it signals that they didn't need to work around dirt and it was easier to keep their clothes clean. And so it signaled high status. Again, these are those social signals. If you remember back in episode 1 and 2, we had talked about different types of attraction. And there was the limbic brain stuff, which pre-selection uses, and peacocking, which is more of a social signal. Again, if you're wearing a suit every day, then in New York, they assume you're a guy in finance. It signals social status. If you're doing that in LA, they don't get that same impression. It's usually that t-shirt and hoodie with like a $20,000 watch signals that affluence, like you're running a tech business. But everything you wear gives messages about you. And if you don't understand the subtext of them, well, that sends a signal in and of itself. And this is why you'll always see guys being made fun of for wearing Birkenstocks and cargo shorts and some graphic t-shirt. It just says they care so little about their appearance and they aren't held to standard by how they dress. And so it just goes off a very lazy demeanor, even if it's comfortable. And yeah, a lot of guys think that it may signal homosexuality if they were to give a crap about their appearance. But again, that insecurity over your masculinity is also signaled through your lazy, stylish choices. So intersexual, the whole thing is about communication and signaling. As much as it was just, is he wearing a denim shirt? Oh, that's pretty funny. But no, it signals. Next part is male interests. Now this one is interesting because a lot of guys don't think of it, but it's good to mention anyway. So women are attractive to men who have stereotypical male interests. Which is weird because aren't I always making fun of Miller Lite masculinity or truck nuts masculinity? Which is true, I do. But at the same time, women like it when men have masculine hobbies. Because it signals the same activity level, the same masculinity of other guys who have those. That's why a guy watching sports isn't a deal breaker. Now, women may even complain about their husbands watching football, for example, but they don't find him sexually repulsive for doing so. The complaint is not that he watches sports, but he watches too much and then he doesn't do other things that she wants him to do. Should a husband grow seriously interested in watching a show about flower arrangement and knitting, his wife may not complain about him watching it, but she would find herself less sexually interested in him. Something to think about. A lot of guys hide their hobbies and their traits from women, and I could make the argument, now I don't know how true it is, but video games are kind of like sports for the millennial generation and younger. It just is the way it is. So you want to hide these things from women because you're worried about it signaling something different. Just be aware. Most guys she dates have interest in stuff. And even the biggest gangster thug has an Xbox, has a PlayStation, plays games. Very interested in that. Now, while it may not make you the most attractive guy, having that as a hobby doesn't make you unattractive. And most of the complaints you get based on that are about dividing your attention. So don't let your hobbies, even nerdy hobbies, kind of work against you. Don't hide them. Don't be ashamed of them. They don't work against you at all. They're just tangential. I like his example at the bottom too. Most wives don't want their husbands visiting strip clubs, but most wives would probably experience him visiting a strip club with much less concern than if he came home with a gift of this great eyeliner I found for sale at the mall. That would tend to signal potential gayness or cross-dressing rather than heterosexuality. So a husband who turns into her best girlfriend loses his sexual attraction as a consequence. Never pick up your girl's hobbies. It's just not useful. Now, if you like something, you like something, whatever. But just be aware. If you're doing it for some sort of placation, validation seeking, or a measure of, you like what I like, I'll like what you like, some kind of equalism there, it does not work. A girl... Now, here's a side point on this one. So generally, narcissism codes to masculinity and borderline personality disorder codes towards femininity. Just extreme outliers of those both examples. Something to keep in mind with borderlines is they're always on the hunt for an identity. So if a girl with borderline personality disorder, well, let's, instead of like a 12 out of 10, let's put like a 5 out of 10 level of BPD. They'll see a man likes the San Francisco 49ers, they watch his football, and so she'll like football. You like watching Minecraft on YouTube, she'll start liking Minecraft on YouTube. They generally take the cues for their identity based on the authority figures in their life. And if that's you, that's great. Now, guys don't work that way. Guys will be more of like a 5 out of 10 narcissism instead of a 5 out of 10 bipolar. Or not bipolar, borderline. So by you taking your keys from a girl and picking up her hobbies, you're actually signaling a feminine response to these things. And again, this is all very subtle stuff. And for the most part, if you get your life in order, it'll never come up and it'll just naturally flow that direction. But if you're a guy who just for the first time ever has kind of figured this stuff out, then yeah, you got to make a concerted effort not to like the things she likes unless you actually like them, because it just sends horrible signals. It's more of a placative symbol and it doesn't work well with you. Next part, by the way, alpha male of the group. I like this one. It's called amogging, if you guys haven't heard it. So within each social group, there's always a social leader referred to as the alpha male of the group, or amog. A group's ultimate leader who does not have to be male, but far more often than not is a male within a group's ultimate social ladder. Within a family unit, it's the husband or the wife is the leader of the family. If the leader is the husband, he creates attraction for him in his wife, but if she's the leader, she loses attraction for him. Now, people very often say it's an equal relationship, but it's usually a bunch of baloney when push comes to shove. Someone is usually the stronger of these two personalities and in reality runs the show. If it's the wife saying it's an equal relationship, it usually means that in fact that she is the one in charge, but doesn't want to frame herself in the conversation as actually being in charge, because that would essentially force her to not respect him as a man. The husband, being the less dominant one, is then required to agree about her and the equality or suffer the consequences of his insubordination. And that's the dynamic most guys don't understand with equal relationships. In fact, if you want to do this as an experiment, equal relationships, pick a hot button topic. Pick something that the other party is very passionate about and stand against it. And you'll see in those outlying cases, in those cases where it's not good enough just to socially signal equality so as to save face, where you actually have to make a decision. And I think decisions about pregnancy are a great one about this. If a guy's saying it's an equal partnership, meanwhile, she doesn't want to have sex with him today, but the instant she wants to get pregnant, she decides to. Who's driving the boat there? Something to keep in mind. So yeah, in most of these cases, from a guy's perspective, things being equal just means there's not a lot of conflict because you generally acquiesce, as we went back to the last chapter. He likes what she likes because then she'll like him. It's typical nice guy behavior. Go back to the No More Mr. Nice Guy series to see that. Great examples of it, by the way. But in the girl's case, it's mostly because she doesn't want to admit she doesn't love you. The I love you, but I'm not in love with you. That's the speech. And that's what saying it's an equal relationship sounds like from a girl's perspective. She's getting the oxytocin, she's getting the serotonin, but the dopamine just isn't there. So yeah, we're an equal relationship. You really need to do that, by the way. When you hear people talk about equality like that, just replace equality with dopamine, a lack of dopamine, and you'll hear how that sounds. And now you're finally understanding the subtext out of so many of your cucked married friends. The next part, cool and confident. So one of the key signals that a male has social dominance is his confidence. Thus, women are highly attracted to displays of confidence in men. A basic display of confidence is the willingness to approach women, especially highly attractive one, and display calmness in their presence. This calmness can be successfully extended to the expressions of mild disinterest, implying that he has some, or that he's become used to being with even better women than her, which would imply that he has a very high value as a man, which then triggers her interest in him. This is one of those nice ways of using pre-selection. I'll give you an example of this. Slump busters. A slump buster, simply put, is going after a girl you wouldn't normally go for because it's been too long since you've had any. Just to get that one out of the way, to get the momentum going again, get back in the game. Hit a couple balls out in the park before you go back to the major leagues. Go back to the bush leagues. This will signal in your brain when you're approaching another girl who's more attractive than her. You might have shot yourself down because you got a little bit of scarcity mentality. You get that out of your system. And you approach her with a certain calm aloofness to you because you know you've got... I can't think of a catchy nickname for that. We'll just call her Kathy. Kathy 4 out of 10. She's an Irish girl. Approaching this new girl thinking, well, if this doesn't work out, I can always just call Kathy and we'll be fine. It's not the best. I can't really tell my friends about it, but if they ask, I'll just say she's only 9 and 10. But it gives you that certain coolness and calmness about you, that confidence that allows you to approach more attractive people. And then it's like I said, when you're first getting your game on track, yeah, you might start with an 8, a 9, a 10, whatever, and then continue that trend going. But more likely, and what most guys do, they start with something they wouldn't normally go for so they can get out of their own head and just live in the moment. Like they're not worried about losing her. They're not worried about losing her. They're not worried about screwing it up. That cool confidence relays as a pre-selective thing for them because this girl's like, this guy normally doesn't go for girls like me, but he seems something special in me. Gives her that confidence to attract you, gives you the confidence to go for her, and then the next girl down the line, and so on and so on. 4s becomes 5s, becomes 6s, becomes 7s, becomes 8s, and then you realize 8s are so much effort. I'm just going to go back to the 7. You know? But a typical fan meeting a celebrity in person usually becomes highly excited and become quite giddy and silly, while the celebrity is usually much less excited and cool. So that coolness is a statement of higher social values that says, I'm not excited to be meeting you. Cool men have always created attraction to women, and the underlying message is, I am not going to react to you. Now, this is very hard to fake, which is why it's more likely that you're going to get there with the slump buster than you are just by changing your mindset or leveling up to the next level or getting good vibrations or changing your MBTI from a J to a T or whatever nonsense anybody on Twitter or Reddit is telling you. They are screwing men over, and the only thing I can't figure out is if they're doing it on purpose or they're just ignorant to how things work. Who knows? Anyways, there's a bunch of other examples in the cool and confident section. I would suggest give it a read and take a look on it. So there's, ending on is obviously a scale of risk here as well. It's one thing for a woman to experience a sense of nervousness as her husband races a 100cc go-kart and feeling impressed watching him. It's quite another thing to know he's being dropped behind enemy lines at night and will be out of communications for a week or forever. Now this makes a reference to another AMOG quality, which is risk-taking. Again, calculated risks are a very attractive quality and they tend to signal social leadership. This could be something very simple. I'll use a personal example, and it's probably one of like the least important examples to illustrate this point. That's why I like it. Going out to see a movie in Montreal. I think it was Infinity War with the old lady. So we're sitting there, we're watching a movie, and a guy behind me starts pulling a Cape Fear. Kicking the back of my chair, getting loud, obnoxious. His girlfriend slapping him, stop that, stop that. And everybody in the theater, entire theater, just full of people, just sitting there stewing about how annoying this guy is. So I turn around and I yell and tell him to shut up. It's a very small thing, but it's amazing how a small amount of conflict could be seen as such a risky endeavor. My girlfriend's pulling my arm, trying to pull me up. I guess wife at the time. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. I read the comic books. So she sees me get up because I was about to get in the guy's face. She pulls me down. It's like, wait. I'll go get the security. So she's gone, and this guy and I are eyeballing each other for like 3 minutes. It was pretty funny. He didn't do nothing. And every time he opened up, I just told him to shut up. Anyways, management took him, had him leave there. The guy tried to kick my leg out from under me as he walked by, but I'm like, whatever, he's gone. His girlfriend's hiding her face. Absolutely hilarious. This is a nothing event. But I'll say this. I remember leaving that theater, And then the girl that was sitting across from us and one back came up, thanked me, looked me in the eye, thanked me, big smile on her face. I'm like, oh, that's sweet. Now, obviously, it didn't get none from her, and my girl liked it. Everybody kind of liked it. Everybody liked it, but nobody was willing to take the social risk for it. Now, if you can't do it on a small, nothing example like that, you can't expect to do it elsewhere. So don't be afraid so much of these little examples, because they're the ones that matter. It's like her. The 100cc go-kart and feeling impressed watching them versus being sent behind enemy lines and getting deployed. You take these small risks right now because they send much better signals than those big, heavy risks. Now, as much as I would suggest, just join Blackwater and be a merc for 6 months. That'll impress the girls with your risk-taking. You're kind of going a bit overboard here. Again, there's so much low-hanging fruit for you to grab to signal the AMOG of the group, or I guess the AMOG is of group. But those signals are very easy to find. And if you just start looking around day to day, you're going to find so many of them. And it's just amazing. They're just there for the taking. Just got to take them, man. Having said that, it was this weird, goofy, pale, pasty guy with like an Asian girlfriend. So I had a kind of waifu vibes from him. So I kind of wanted to hit him on principle, but whatever. We're civilized now. We don't start fights in the movie theater. And I wanted to see what happened. Turns out half the people died and Thanos got the thing. Can you believe that? A one-track mind. I think this is the last one. Let me check my notes quickly. Yeah, so this is the last one of this episode. A lot of guys hide their sexuality. They think they need to be friends with a girl first. They need to signal that she likes her for something other than sex. And then they get friend zoned. So often. Signal sexuality right away. Well, how do you do that? How do you keep them getting friend zoned? And there's a ton of YouTube channels where guys giving you those 10-minute and 1-second advertisements for their, whatever course saying, always signal sexuality. Well, here's a good reason backed by cave science. A woman may not always be interested in sex, but if she is interested in having sex, she wants a man that will clearly be able to follow through and give her the sex she wants. A man that declines sex when a woman asks for it creates a very negative response in her towards him. Typically, she will find him much less attractive as a result. That marked reduction in attraction can lead to her treating him quite differently in the future. If it was their first sexual experience together, she will usually write him off as a loser permanently. Right there. The idea of and there's like 3 examples I can think of where this is very, very important. First is an initial attraction. When you first meet a girl, you signal sexual interest right away. You make your intentions very clear. You don't try to be friends first, because you don't want to be friends first. You signal honestly, and you signal sexually. Girls are used to it, don't worry. Every guy she's met since she was 13 has been trying this, so she gets the game. If you're attractive, if her dopamine gets going, then you're in there. But if you signal this friendship, if you signal a lack of sexuality, even if you don't plan on smashing that night, let's say you're a hardcore Christian who wants to save it until marriage, if you don't get her hot and bothered, same thing. If this guy doesn't want it now, what happens when I want him to have sex and he decides to say no? It's just a very strong signal, and girls would much rather have a guy that's always on, so they can have their pick and chooses when to let down the gatekeeper of sex. Same thing in a relationship. A lot of guys will work on their map, their male action plan, and one of the first responses that you get is about sex. Well, what do you do? Well, here's the things you do to be more attractive, build up those alpha traits, get the dopamine flowing again. What happens here is a lot of guys end up in that situation where the girl initiates with them and they shoot her down as some weird revenge fantasy. They'll always build up some convoluted story as to why they weren't in the mood. Well, she was just acting cranky and, I just wanted to shoot her down. It's like, yeah, you're the man, buddy. Like, your whole reason for being here was to have more sex. And now, not only are you going to have more sex, but she's actively initiating, and you shoot her down, and that lets you know your ego is getting in your way. Because it's this weird revenge fantasy of she shot me down for 6 months, and now I get to do it. Yes! And it feels cathartic, and it feels so good, and now you have dry dick, but you can't blame anybody but yourself. Well done, sir. Well done. But again, same thing. It signals horribly that you're not reliable on a sexual front, and I guarantee you she initiates less. Now, you may be one of those guys that don't initiate much at all, and she always initiates and she doesn't feel genuinely desired. That's a separate issue. But just be aware. don't care got laid. It's not just a catchy, pithy statement from my book, available in bookstores everywhere, by the way. It's a evolutionary attraction signal. So continuing on, it's also alpha not to care about getting sex from any one particular woman. Alphas are generally attractive to women, so any one woman that gives any difficulty from granting sexual favors can simply be replaced with another one who is willing. This creates a sense of stress in the wife, as a husband with high alpha qualities clearly has a much better chance of finding an affair opportunity than a husband without them. Jealousy can be an emotional roller coaster and lead to a more intense connection and sexual intensity as well. She may also just find him highly attractive and lay him like tile, regardless of his potential for other women. It's a somewhat dark tactic, but the dynamic of multiple women finding you attractive is very tangible for those gaining leverage over a particular woman. So as this book progresses, we will return to this approach as a key element of change. However dark and immoral it may seem on the surface, pulling the interest of multiple women isn't anything other than the natural consequence of being a good quality man. In the current sexual marketplace, not being a good quality man leads a husband to endless sexual denial and eventual divorce. A man has no option but to better himself constantly or risk being cast out. There's that divorce rape thing. There's a reason why it's mostly unattractive people crying about it. Well, that and people who did get divorce raped. I don't want to play it as like this will solve all your problems, but you gotta be aware. It's a very strong tactic and it has strong evolutionary backing as to why it works. It's all in how you frame it. Now, the one thing I don't like is how he gives a justification here. So however immoral it may seem, pulling the interest isn't anything other than the natural consequence of being a good quality man. I don't like I get why he did that, because it's like a justification. But that's the problem, is people who do all kinds of evil and immoral things will always try to find some justification. Well, if I didn't do it, somebody else would do it. And at least I am a benevolent dictator. Just own it. I have no problem saying at times that I'm being manipulative, because everything is manipulative. If a girl gets mad at you and gives you the silent treatment, what do you think that is if not manipulation to get your validation seeking used as a weapon against you to get what she wants? If a baby cries, if a dog yelps, all these things are manipulation. In fact, communication is generally manipulation. Logic is generally communication, is generally manipulation. All three of them. I wish I could find the study. I've lost it in the annals of time there. Or annals of time. Yeah, I think annals is better. One sec. There we go. But it was a good argument made that humans weren't designed for an objective understanding of the world around them. They were designed for a good enough horseshoes and hand grenades understanding, and that logic did not exist in order to fully calculate the objective measures of the world. What logic did is it was a way of persuading those that to follow your emotional reactions. That's why you're going to see logic among guys that call themselves the black pill, who say being ugly is, they're never going to get anywhere because they're ugly, or MGTOWs, that women just aren't worth the squeeze, or politics, the Dems or the Republicans or whoever is evil and we're good and whatever. It always starts from an emotional axiom, an emotional presupposition. I'm angry at women because I'm afraid of abandonment. Develop an entire logical system, which we'd call, PowerPoint MGTOWs, pulling a number out of my ass there. All of those logical things exist to persuade you to understand his point of view. Meanwhile, the whole thing was just built off an emotional presupposition. So just remember, when somebody is trying to use flawless logic against you, that's a post hoc justification for some kind of emotional thing there. And it's something you really need to understand to have any level of self-awareness. All of your base desires, all of your ethical and moral frameworks tend to follow an emotional reaction. And that post hoc justification you do afterwards is a way of persuading other people due to a sense of fairness, of fair play, of people just like spotting patterns. And if you're able to make your emotional thing have a bunch of patterns in the real world, more likely to be persuasive to you. So it's something you can do. Map this stuff to when somebody's trying to be logical or dispassionate or objective. And you're going to see that it's all designed from a basic emotional premise. And if you agree with that premise, you're going to want to agree with all the logic. And if you don't, you're going to argue with the logic. And you see tons of examples of that right now. Just go onto any social media site. Go onto Facebook. I don't know why you would. Go onto Twitter. go on to anything, and you're going to see an example in the news that's going to be seen in two different ways. Like Scott Adams says, it's like people watching two different movies on the same screen. And that's all because they all have their different emotional bases, and then the logic is then convoluted and work to fit into that. So right there, Danny, Ryan's fitting to whoop some loudmouth ass in the theater. Yeah, it's not my proudest moment. It was just a good example of not being so risk adverse as to not to. He was a little bit bigger than me, but he was also a nerd. He read the comics. But that's the point. For all of this stuff, taken all together, you're going to learn this because you want to have a healthier relationship. You're going to learn this because you want better relationships. You're going to learn this because your relationship is 80% down pat. The only thing that's missing is more sexual frequency. Now, when you come here, it's originally to get that more attractive, be less unattractive thing going. And then by the end of it, you're going to find you're going to gain media savviness from it. You're going to gain an inability to be manipulated by marketers, by politicians, by family members, by everything. Everything that goes wrong in your life usually involves somebody being persuasive enough to tap into your insecurities to allow you to go against your best interest in pursuit of theirs. And yeah, you're just learning how to get your dick wet here. But at the end of it, you're going to come out of it self-actualized. And I swear to God, when you see a guy get there, it's damned magical. I love it. Anyways, so that's it for this episode. Hope you guys liked it. We're going to do 2 more this week, another one tomorrow, and another one the day after. Thank you guys very much. We went a little bit longer than I like to go, but don't forget, if you like this content, smash like, hit subscribe. There's bell notifications. You're going to see when they all come out. And share this far and wide. Let your friends come in and see it. Don't forget, Married Man Sex Life Primer on Amazon. It's really, really useful if you don't just watch these, but you have the book with you and have a good understanding of what's in there when we talk about this stuff. Because again, this is to expand and amend the knowledge that's been in there, that's been in the field for a good 10 years. It's not meant to supplant it. So if you think you can watch these and still get just as far along as you would by reading Married Man Sex Life Primer, I'm going to tell you it's not going to work out. But anyways, thank you guys very much. Did I already say to hit like? YouTube says if you don't say hit like every time, then people won't hit like. And if they don't hit like, YouTube sees that as bad engagement. Well, he didn't get like hit. Let's not recommend this video because clearly not a lot of people liked it. Like. Anyways, enough of that repetition stuff. Enjoy the rest of your guys' day. After this, I'm going to go do some audiobook work on Twitch. So if you want to come check it out, I'll put the link in the chat. So come on in, you're going to see me do the final bits of work for the Fuck Files audiobook. I think we're up to chapter 9 right now on the QA part. It's probably the most boring content ever, but I kind of like doing it on Twitch there, so it's a chance to, you know, just casually chat with guys while you watch me edit audio files. Anyways, on that note, I'll see you tomorrow. "22 seconds of yumminess. Get an end card at the back of it. I don't know why that one clicks in and out like that. Oh well. I got to do me another one of those. From Karen to Becky. I always like that. All right, guys.